Ever wondered why some students can study a material once and get a better understanding of it? And there you are reading the same material for the seventh time and still can't retain any information. It is not that these people are naturally gifted or use some sort of supernatural inputs. The difference between you and them is that they know how to study, but you don't. Well, don't worry. Stick until the very end of this video and I hope you would have learned a thing or two. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Jabo Zakaria. Please leave a like, comment, and also subscribe. Now, let's dive deep into the video. The very big question I want to ask you is, how do you approach your studies? What techniques do you apply to help you learn the things that you learn? Some students would personally read through the material over and over, and somehow they hope that they will miraculously understand the material. Whereas there are some students who would read the material giving equal priorities to every information they read. This is a very lame way of studying and very time wasting too. Top students would rather skim through the whole chapter first, taking note of highlighted text, images, diagrams, and any other thing that they think the author deemed relevant. This gives them a fair idea of what the chapter entails, and 20% of the foundation has already been laid. After reading through everything, they will then take their time and study the material thoroughly. A better and a holistic understanding of the material will stem from how well you are able to relate the current information to the previous knowledge that you already have about the information and trying to create analogies around the concept. Trying to relate previous knowledge to the existing knowledge would help to create a very strong interlinked system of the broken pieces of knowledge that you already have about the concept, helping to increase your retention rate exponentially in the long run. To do well in the exams, you want to focus on core concepts. Another big difference between top students and average students is that top students pay more attention to high relevant information. By all means, study every piece of the material, going through it for the first time. On subsequent visits, you want to narrow it down to things which are really relevant. The past papers, the exam questions you gather on the internet, and the review questions at the end of the chapter should be able to guide you to narrow things down, study around these core concepts, and be able to even predict the most likely examination questions. And if you are ever indecisive as to whether reading a textbook or a lecture slides will do, please, I would suggest you read a textbook first for an in-depth and a fundamental understanding of the topic before moving on to read the lecture slides. The lecture slides will point out the important stuff in that module or course, but a textbook will make you appreciate the topic to a greater extent. Read the books, the lecture slides, and any other resource within your reach. Transfer the main ideas into a notebook, highlighting the important words and text if necessary, and then formulate active recall questions to use them as a revision tool in the future. Grab a piece of paper, a laptop, a notebook, or a phone. Write down active recall questions. These questions should be simple and coherent, and they should come from both your understanding of the topic and the actual points raised in the chapter. This way, you are not just gobbling and regurgitating stuff from that concept, but you are actively involving your brain to participate in answering and formulating of these active recall questions. And since you are using your brain to do this, then it shouldn't be so hard for you to remember the answers to the questions in the future. That is, if you have to. Refine and improve active recall questions. Instead of just going back to read everything or opting for rote memorization, I would rather encourage you to practice and prioritize answering of active recall questions, trying to fill in the knowledge gaps whenever necessary, especially when you are stuck upon questions. And if it gives you a hard time to answer some of these questions, don't panic. It is completely normal. Some of these questions are definitely going to get you frustrated. What I rather want you to do is that try so hard coming up with the answers to the questions, and if after many failed attempts, then go back to your textbooks or lecture slides, read the concept and the information again, paying particular attention to these knowledge gaps. The best way to reinforce knowledge is through active recall and spaced repetition. Remember that when it comes to memory retention and trying to move information from the working memory to the long-term memory, repetition is key. And please try to avoid the perfect answers. What I call the perfect answers are the actual answers which are being stated in the book. When you do this, there's always the temptation to go in to check these answers, especially when you are stuck upon questions that you are finding so hard to answer. what you should rather do is that refer back to the textbooks or the lecture slides. This way, it gives you a holistic understanding of the concepts and not just memorizing the something out of context. And no, before I forget, I have another video where I speak about how to stay hyper focused when studying without getting distracted. So far, all the things I've spoken about in this video, you can't do any of them without being focused. So please check that video out. Alright friends, this is where the part 1 of this video ends. Please subscribe in order to support me to keep making these videos. And also you don't want to miss the part 2 of this interesting video. Alright, that will be all for today and see you soon.